Hello and welcome back to the Forza Italian Football podcast. It's been a couple of weeks since we last spoke to you after having a brief break during the international games, and it's been even longer since you heard from my only guest tonight. I'm Conor Clancy, and joining me after a couple of weeks off is Nicholas Carroll. Nick, how's everything?
Doing very well, Connor. I'm happy to be here, bringing the FIF podcast live from Napoli itself. As you might be able to see some of the background there, some of the houses. So we're just near Garibaldi here. We've set up. We've obviously been at a couple games this weekend. If you have seen the YouTube page, so that's been lots of fun. But yeah, weekend, seen some good football. A bit disappointed with Inter's loss today, but hey, you can't win them all.
Yeah, I was personally took a lot of satisfaction out of Inter's defeat tonight because, as you say, you're in Naples and I'll be meeting you in Rome tomorrow. So it's nice to have Atalanta ahead of Inter for our first encounter in person. But I suppose that's where we'll start with Inter against Sampdoria. Did Inter take the lead? Sorry, I only caught the last 20 minutes of this myself. But the end result is all that matters, and they were beaten 2-1. You're not too happy about Patrick Schick's goal for Sampdoria. Do you want to talk us through what happened?
Losing to Sampdoria at home is not a good result for Inter. I think I was reading a stat just earlier that it was the first time Sampdoria's won away at Inter since 1996, which kind of tells you something. So yeah, disappointing on a lot of accounts. I think the international break definitely all on the team. I shouldn't say Inter didn't look near the form that they were showing before the break. A lot of our representatives were obviously nations, so you can excuse that to some extent, but at the same time, Inter's a more than professional team. Well, it should be anyway, and we should be coming away with those wins. Despite dominating possession, like a lot of the times, the crossing was pretty abysmal. Kandreva, again, was just not producing from out wide, and really just weren't taking any chances, and Sampdoria made us pay. And to be fair to them, they actually hit the crossbar, I think, twice in the first half. So it wasn't as though they just had those two opportunities. So fair play to them, but for Inter, nowhere near the quality that they should be at. And just would be hoping that it was just one of those off games after the international break. Maybe a week or two into it, they'll get some form and get back to that form that they were showing before the break, where they were consistently best in the Serie A.
Yeah, they did lose late on because of a Fabio Quagliarella penalty, which was given because of a handball from Brozovic. I know you've not been his biggest fan this year. What was he thinking, putting his arms out so far away from his body in the box? Like, that's a penalty all day long.
I often, for most of the minutes that Brozovic plays, I wonder what he's doing. And I mean, that kind of characterized what he does on the field, because I question it all the time. And that's it all kind of summed up into one little action, which cost into the game. So I thought it was very odd that Pioli started with paired with Brozovic as opposed to Kondogbia. And unfortunately, Gagliardini went off with an ankle injury, I believe, and was subbed on by Kondogbia. So Brozovic was preferred starter, and as we've seen many times this season, he kind of seems a bit lost in that team. He doesn't have a big impact in the midfield. He of touches, but he doesn't make any significant impact. So it's quite frustrating seeing him. So I don't know what Pioli is kind of looking at there. There's something a lot of the fans aren't seeing, because I know a lot of the fans on Twitter and social media were kind of echoing the same kind of thoughts as to why he's continually in these matches. But ridiculous by Brozovic, and hopefully, let's say many Inter fans will be hoping to see less of him as the weeks go by.
Yeah, he tends to be linked with the move away, as a lot of players in Serie A do. So hopefully, for your sanity, he will be signed by somebody else in the summer. We'll try and get through this as quickly as possible. But just remember, folks, that if you have any questions or comments, you can just drop them into the comments box there below, and we'll try our best to get to them all and read them out live on air. We'll move now to a game which you were at in the Stadio San Paolo last night. Sunday night, for those listening a little later in the week. It was the first of two meetings between Napoli and Juventus in the space of 4 days. The second one we will be at again on Wednesday evening. But you have to say, it was pretty much a job well done from Juve, wasn't it? They went there knowing that they just really needed to avoid defeat, and job done, yeah?
Yeah, I guess you could say that, in that it was almost quite typical of Juve, in that even though when they're not at their best and they're not playing a great game, they still manage to get results, and more than often those results are wins. But I guess because it was a quite strong Napoli outfit, that it did end up a draw. So I guess you could say job well done for Juve. It was given how the game went, I think fans, Juventini, would be quite happy with that. I mean, let's be honest, Napoli dominated most of that game, and I think from an neutral
So, Nick, you're breaking up there a bit. I'll just give your connection a chance to recover maybe. But yeah, Napoli did dominate the game, and Juve were just so disciplined defensively, as we've come to expect from them, especially in Europe this year. But do you think the difference might have been, I know Dries Mertens has been brilliant this year for Napoli, but do you think the difference might have been they just lack a proper striker with that instinct? There was an incident late on. There was a great ball over the top from, I think, Zielinski, who found Callahan. And then Callahan knocked the ball back across goal, where you would expect a striker to gamble on being. But Mertens was just standing about 6 yards away from it. What do you think? Do they have problems up front, even with Mertens' good form this year? Nick, are you there?
Yep, sorry, I'm back.
There we go. Right.
I'm outside. I've got some dodgy B&B Wi-Fi, so please excuse me if I'm dropping in and out.
Right. I was just saying that obviously Napoli dominated the game, but they couldn't take advantage of that. A lot of it is down to Juventus's good defense, obviously, but do you think they're lacking a proper striker? Mertens just doesn't seem to have the natural instincts of someone like Gonzalo Higuain, for example.
I don't know. I think that's probably a hard argument to make, given how many goals Mertens has scored this season. Granted, in this game, I think I think me and Dov actually had this discussion that they were trying those crosses in, and it just clearly wasn't working against that Juventus defense. They needed to change things up. They're going kicking it constantly towards a 5'6" striker, and it wasn't working in that. But that first half, I mean, the service was pretty terrible. To his defense, a lot of the crosses were going completely over everyone, and then when they did get the chance at finishing, I think, as you mentioned, they just weren't. It just wasn't happening for them. But granted, they had the halftime break and they came out. They were much more effective in that attacking third, and they were actually, instead of just kind of pinging balls in from out wide, they were actually trying to play through the Juve defense, and you can see that perfectly with the Marek Hamsik's goal. It was a great little team goal, a big build-up from midfield, and then Hamsik to Mertens puts it back to Hamsik, who's made the runs, and slots it into the corner. And I think for teams like that, that's really Napoli's strength, particularly with a striker such as Mertens now. Advantage. I think they can play the ball like that. I would say better than anyone in Serie A. So I think that's the way they're definitely going to get through defenses like Juventus. And going forward to Wednesday's Coppa Italia, I think they will be looking to infiltrate the box with that kind of play as much as possible.
Yeah, well, they're 3-1 down from the first leg, but at the San Paolo, they could probably beat anybody. They were brilliant against Real Madrid last month. Sorry, but it just didn't happen for them. Do you think they can do it and go through to the final?
Well, I honestly think the way that they dominated Juve for much of that game, and for honestly 45 minutes, their play in that attacking third was quite rubbish. So to come back and get a draw against them when for 45 minutes they weren't that great, I think they can grab a lot of confidence from that, from taking what they did in the second half. They were creating so many chances, and not only that, but they kept Juve to four shots in total compared to their 13. And I think one of the stats was saying that was the biggest margin between shots and shots conceded that Juve had conceded in quite a while in Serie A this season, I should say. So, not only in attack they can create the chances, but defensively probably, and they won't get that much credit for it, but Napoli was incredible in defense. They limited Juve so much, particularly out wide. I thought Hisai and Strinic were fantastic, and Juve really weren't able to infiltrate out wide, and it really limited their attacking abilities. So there's lots of positives that Napoli can take from the way they played. And I guess back to the question, I think they can, personally. I think they can overturn it. It's going to be difficult, but I think, just being at that stadium and hearing it was an experience like nothing other. And we've put some videos up if anyone wants to go check them out on YouTube, but you'll hear some of the screaming and the whistling coming from the San Paolo, and even the videos do it no justice as to how deafening and those noises were. So with that behind you, it's almost like you just have to believe that they can actually overturn it. In saying that, look, Juve are Juventus, and they are going to make it as difficult as possible. And you saw in that second half, even they were just kind of happy to, although they did look a bit nervous, they were happy to just play it around at the back. So I think it's going to be a great game because Napoli will be coming out and attacking. So hopefully we're going to see some good attacking football. And I think it's going to be how effective Napoli's attack can be against Juve's defense, because I think the play of the match will go towards Napoli's way again.
Yeah, you make a good point mentioning the crowd, because that was one of the key factors in their early dominance, if you want to call it that, against Madrid. Although eventually Madrid came back, but through Sergio Ramos doing what he does best and spoiling the party. But the videos you put one up on Twitter, and then plenty went up on YouTube. It looked and sounded, more importantly, amazing. I've only been to the San Paolo once myself. They beat Lazio 4-1, and Higuain scored a hat-trick. And when they do that, when the guy, Daniel Decibel, as they call him, does the shout and they shout it back, it is something like nothing else. And I'm really looking forward to hearing that again on Wednesday night, and hopefully they can complete an amazing comeback, which is what it will be. We'll move on again to Roma. Were you at this game? Roma 2, Empoli 0?
Yes, yeah. At home to Empoli, yeah. Against
a terrible side, wasn't it?
Yeah, look, to be honest, Roma weren't even that great. They wasted
a lot. You don't need to beat Empoli these days.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, that Roma it was quite a safe victory, 2-0, and Roma were nowhere near their best. So possibly a good time to play Empoli coming back from the international break, I guess you could say, with a lot of their players also with their respective nations. So yeah, they weren't great. Nangolan was nowhere near as decisive as he has been. But Dzeko, granted, played with Bosnia-Herzegovina, came back and got 2 goals, got a brace, and equals Capocannonieri title race, you guess you could say. So to be honest, the quality of football wasn't great. Being there in the stadium, particularly, not a great game to watch. But Roma did what they need to, and I'm sure they'll be better for getting another game under their belts after the break.
Yeah, with those 2 goals as well, Ivan Dzeko did become the first Roma player to score 33 goals since Francesco Totti in, I think it was 2006-07. But they're now 4 points ahead of Napoli and in second place. It's basically theirs to lose now, isn't it? Surely the top three is done and dusted.
Yeah, I mean, you would think it is Roma's to lose. I would agree with that. The only, I guess, the only kind of thing in the side of my head that I have is, if anyone has the ability to kind of blow it, it's Roma. With all due respect to the Giallorossi fans, we know Roma have those games in them, and I've kind of been saying it all season, and it might turn out to have been wrong all season, and I'll gladly take that on the chest if I am. But I think Napoli are a more consistent team, and I think particularly going to the finish line, I think they will be a more consistent team. But yeah, it is Roma's to lose. That's, not tippy toe around that. I guess they should get the second place from here, but yeah, we'll see. It'll be a good fight. Hopefully, we get. It's going to be a bit of a disappointing with the Scudetto race again this season, but hopefully we get some good competition for second, third, and then, well, obviously the Europa places have been quite a good little competition going there. So yeah, let's hope it can continue.
Oh, we'll come to the Europa League places, Nicholas. Don't you worry about that.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we will.
Currently occupying one of those places is Lazio, and if Napoli can still catch Roma, surely Lazio can still catch Napoli, because they're only 4 points behind the Partenopei. They went behind to Sassuolo, but they came back and won 2-1, showing this fight that we've seen them show all season, which is something that you wouldn't really associate with them in the last couple of years. But they look really good. We've discussed them a little bit, but I still don't feel like we've discussed them quite enough. And I'm guilty in this as well, because I don't watch Lazio anywhere near as much as I should, just because I don't see them as being in that top bracket, but they really are. And they deserve to be taken a bit more seriously, I think. And if we can look ahead to next week, just really briefly, they actually play Napoli at the Stadio Olimpico, which, if they win that, you've got to think they could really push and get the Champions League places.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I talk about consistency with regards to Napoli against Roma, but consistency-wise, Lazio have been one of the most consistent this season, possibly even more so in 2017. I mean, I think they're undefeated in 10, 11 matches, including the Coppa Italia games. So, yeah, I think we've briefly talked about them, but I think it's almost like they've gone under the radar this season. Everyone's, with all that's going on with, Juve, Napoli, Roma, and all the trouble, the Inter, and then Atalanta's incredible season, Milan's woes, and Lazio just kind of doing about their business quietly. And Simone Inzaghi has done an incredible job. As you said, it's very much a mindset where even from coming from behind, they can fight, and he's changed that squad. I mean, you look at even 1 or 2 seasons ago. I mean, it's such a contrast in terms of just the mentality of that team. They have a lot of spirit, a lot of fight, and as I think we mentioned a few weeks ago, they are a team. They very much play like a team more than so many of the other teams around them. So, I mean, I can't give enough credit to Simone Inzaghi. He's done incredible there. And look, I mean, against Napoli, it's quite close, but I mean, you also have to look at Lazio's run to the end. They have, as you mentioned, they've got Napoli, then they've also got Roma, they've got Fiorentina and Inter, and then finish with Crotone. But they've got some difficult games, so I guess that's going to be the real test.
Yeah, I suppose. But if they can beat Napoli this week, well, then you'd fancy them against pretty much anybody. They got their first win over Roma in 4 years in the first leg of the Coppa Italia, so they'll have confidence going into that as well. Fiorentina, well, everybody who listens knows our thoughts on Fiorentina this year, so you would expect them to win there as well. And Inter will be a test, granted, especially after tonight's result. You'd expect Inter to really up their game in the next few weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean that match could very well be for 4th and 5th position outright for the season. So that could be a huge game.
Okay, don't be getting ahead of yourself with that 5th place chat, because next on the list is Genoa Atalanta. I really like the teams from Liguria this week. Samp beating Inter and Genoa just kindly rolling over and allowing Atalanta to beat them 5-0 at the Marassi. What more can you say? Papu Gomez scored a hat-trick. We're not going to discuss Atalanta for too long because the listeners get it enough. And Nick, trust me, you will be hearing enough about them in the next few days once I meet you out in Rome. But it's Papu's first season getting to double digits for goals. He got that last time he played, and then he scored the first hat-trick of his career against Genoa. He's been brilliant, and I'm terrified that someone's going to take him away. I know he said that if they get Europe, he'll stay, but if someone throws a lot of money at him, you couldn't really be angry at him if he left. The one shock about him really is that he's not getting a look in that Argentina squad.
Well, I mean, even Mauro Icardi can't get in, so yeah, wait in line, buddy.
But Mauro Icardi is an extremely dislikable character. I'm sure you'll agree. But
don't get me started on this again. I've just had this discussion with the boss for the last 2 hours.
Okay, we'll get into that. We'll dissect that once I get out to Rome to meet you tomorrow. Don't worry. But in Andrea Conti and Mattia Caldara, do Atalanta have the best attacking defenders in Serie A? You're just gonna go on.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the best. They've got a good young bunch. I'm not going to say the best. I'm not going to jump to any. You're not going to get me quoting. You're not going to get a little soundbite of me saying this. I'm going to be careful, very careful with my words here, because Mr. Dove might tweet that quote as well. So no, but and there's a lot of talent there. Granted, it's across the whole field. It's a great young talented team with so much potential. And as you mentioned with Gomez, it's the big question is how many of those players Atalanta can keep. Hopefully it will be good to see one of these teams kick on for another season. I mean, we've seen Sassuolo from last season who have gone down quite a bit and struggled with the whole Serie A and Europa League. You look at Udinese a few seasons ago when they were finished third, and then after that they dropped significantly. So it would be good to see one of these teams actually, stay up there. But I mean, that's a whole nother task in itself. So you can't hold it against the teams, but it will be good to see.
Yeah, I hate to drag it back to English football, but you saw Leicester last year. They won the Premier League, and then because they're a small club, I don't know what it was, but there seemed to be a target on their backs from everyone else, and obviously they dropped their performances as well. But the big thing was Kante got signed by Chelsea. So once these players impress with the smaller clubs, the big clubs do just come in and strip them down to the bare bones, and I'm kind of afraid about this summer, if I'm being completely honest. But the highlight of this game for me was probably the Papu dance getting its first airing on the pitch. I don't know if you've been keeping up with this trend on Instagram, Nick, have you?
I've seen a bit of it. I've seen enough of it, let's say
that. Well, you'll be seeing plenty more. Trust me, I'll be doing the Papu dance all over Rome and Naples in the next few days. I might even have to interrupt a couple of your YouTube videos in the background, maybe. But we'll move on.
You're going to be starring in some YouTube videos. What do you mean?
Yeah, I'm just going to be doing the Papu dance. Did you not get the message? We'll move on to the final game that we're going to discuss because, like we said, I'm flying out tomorrow and I want to get up early, so I want to be in bed early. But it's Pescara Milan. An absolute disaster against the Delfini for Milan, I'm sure you'll agree, and an absolute disaster for Gigio Donnarumma. Yeah,
I mean, what can you say about that opener from Pescara, or from James Palotta, I guess you could. Yeah, particularly after sorry, just lost my train of thought.
Yeah,
Particularly after the international break, where Donnarumma played, and I mean had a
I gave him man of the
incredible.
match. I did the player ratings for the game against the Netherlands, and in a not an impressive win, but comfortable enough win. I thought Donnarumma was brilliant. He got the highest rating from me, and I saw a few other of the Italian-based news sites were doing the same thing. But with this back pass, when Paletta plays that back pass, defenders are told, if you're playing a ball back to a goalkeeper, don't play it in line with the goal. Just so even if that does happen, put it wide. But surely the blame has to be shared between the two, doesn't it?
I think so. And excuse me if I did say, I think I may have said James Paletta. I've got Roma on.
Yeah, I think so.
I did obviously mean Gabriel Paletta. Roma on the head. I'm already thinking about our meeting in Rome. I'm ahead of myself, so my apologies, everyone. I do know the difference. But yeah, no. It wasn't a great pass, granted, but we're talking about the top league in Serie A, and Donnarumma needs to do a lot better than that. So, yeah, I guess you can say it happens. Buffon has done probably not that bad, but similar type of things before, one or two. So it might just be one of those things. He's young. It's bound to happen. And I guess given his age, you'd probably expect it to happen more than he has. And given how much he's saved Milan this season, I think you could probably let him off for this one mistake. But I mean, in terms of the result, yeah, awful result for Milan. Just not good enough, really, given and with all due respect to Pescara, given the quality of the opposition, they need to be winning those games every time. Really, there's no excuse.
Definitely, there is absolutely no excuse to not beat Pescara. It's an absolute disaster. But that's probably Milan's. Well, it's not quite their European hopes done, of course, but it's a serious knock against them with a few tough games still to come between now and the end of the season for them. We'll move on briefly. Just look at the bottom of the table. We've had a message actually on Twitter from someone who will remain nameless. I'm sure you'll agree with my decision there, but we've been told to be careful with what we say about Udinese. Nick, do you want to give a word about Udinese? We've been bothered about this for weeks. Maybe this will put an end to it.
You know what? I had a great stat the other week about Udinese, but they kind of ruined it with their awful defense this week. So I'll have to relook at the stat next week. Maybe I can get something positive out for them. But they let in a lot of shots. Torino kind of. I mean, granted, to get a draw in that match was impressive. But I mean, Torino was all over them for that match, and Torino could have scored 4 or 5. So
we've got a
good. Let's say, I guess you could say the same as Juventus. Job well done in that they were completely outplayed, but they got a draw. But also, they need to tighten up at the back. Which going back to my original stat, which I'll try and air maybe next week when I'm back home. But it was basically on their. Oh, I have a guest here.
I'm very sorry if anyone's listening to the audio. You're not.
I was being the producer, so I had to come back and.
Would you like a?
Come here. I'll have a headphone.
We're gonna share.
We're sharing.
All right, boss.
Hi, Connor. Hi, everybody. The 5 watchers. It's lovely to see you.
It's nice to see you too, Dov. We were just talking about Udinese. We're being bothered by that persistence and irritating follower we have on Twitter. She wants us to talk about Udinese again. Have you got anything to say about them?
They're lucky. They're a very lucky side. They're one of the luckiest sides in Serie A this season. To be honest, they shouldn't really be in the league. I think everybody would agree with that.
Yeah. They're basically not even in Italy. They should just play in the Slovenian league, shouldn't they?
Exactly. That would probably be better for everybody.
Yeah, so I think we fulfilled some sort of contractual obligement there to talk about Udinese. We've been hassled about that for weeks. So hopefully that puts a very firm end to it. We don't want to talk about them. They give us no reason to talk about them, so we're not going to talk about them for the rest of the season.
You're talking about them too much. You're dragging us on quite a lot. Move on, Conor Clancy. Move on.
Right, that'll just about do it, I think, for this week. Like I said,
wait, hold on. You didn't even talk about Cable. Did you even talk about Cable? Why didn't you talk about Cable? Cable were robbed against. Robbed, I tell you. Robbed.
Go on, have your Chievo minute.
No, that was it. They were robbed, completely and utterly robbed. It should have been 3-0. God knows how Crotone won at the Cauldron, which is called. But they managed to do it. It's terrible, honestly. And I'm sure all the listeners and watchers and viewers and all those people agree as well.
You're going to stick with Cauldron, yeah?
It is a Cauldron. 9,000 fans that make more noise than 80,000 Napoli fans, I'll tell you that much.
All right, we're trying to big up the San Paolo. We're going there on Wednesday. We're making videos. Don't be doing that.
We will. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd just like to personally congratulate the Calabrese team of Crotone for getting their first away win in Serie A. So
well, we like to give things to people as well. So we're quite a giving club. So we don't want to kind of keep all the success to ourselves, but it's good to give.
Yeah, it's good to be charitable, especially in Serie A. Like I said, we will be out with the guys are there in Naples now, but I will be joining them in Rome tomorrow, and then we will be going to the Coppa Italia Derby della Capitale game.
I don't know if the people can hear the sirens, but they're getting prepared for your arrival.
No, we can hear that. That's probably to protect Gonzalo Higuain, I'm sure. And then we'll be heading down to Naples again on Wednesday for the rematch between Napoli and Juve. Keep an eye on YouTube. We'll be putting up plenty of videos. The usual stuff is going on ForzaItalianFootball.com. This will be out on iTunes and Acast tomorrow. I'll edit it in the airport and send it on to you. And yeah, that's pretty much that. So keep an eye on everything. Next time we'll chat to you from Italy. Say goodbye, boys.
No, hold on, wait a minute. They need to give us money on Patreon because we are poor journalists. We come out here to give people live things from Napoli, and we come to report from these games for people, and it's a hard job, and it's a job that costs a lot of money. I was about to swear there, but I realised this is a family show.
It's a family show like Chievo is a family club. Nick, do you want to do your professional Patreon plug, or are you happy to leave it to the boss man this week?
Well, hold on. Listen, you're taking the piss out of Chievo, right? Do you know that Chievo gave every single one of their season ticket holders a bottle of Prosecco for Christmas?
Yeah, I saw that. You probably shared it on Facebook and Twitter. And
I did, because how many clubs do that? You don't see Juve doing that, do you? Or
they've only got 9,000 going to games, so it's easier for them.
Yeah, but they've got loads of season ticket holders all over the world. They just can't get to the games, but they're part of the family club. Should be hashtag Chievo Family Club.
Right, well, we'll introduce that hashtag going forward for the rest of the season.
There you go.
Have you got all your Chievo rants finished with now?
Big Serge?
Oh, Big Serge. He should be in the Italy team, I'll tell you. Get this Belotti guy out. Get this Immobile guy out. Eder, he's not even Italian. Sergio Police should be in there. Right, I'm done now. You can go.
Did you see Chievo, did you see the goal that Medjerini scored in training?
Obviously. I watch all the training sessions.
It was amazing. We'll try find that video because it's worth putting out there. But yeah, say goodbye now, Dov.
Right. Bye, everybody.
Nick?
Am I saying bye?
Yeah, please say goodbye.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, Connor.
Yeah, I can't wait.
I'm sure all the fans are going to enjoy the big meeting.
We'll have to do some sort of ceremonial handshake when we meet for the first time.
I was thinking a run together in a field of flowers in slow motion.
I've got a better idea. Do you want to do the Papu dance with me?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think that's going a bit too far, Connor.
I'll buy you a drink if you do the Papu dance on video with me.
I'll sleep on
it. That's fine. Right. I'll see you tomorrow, Nick, and everyone else. I'll see you sometime soon. Ciao for now.
Ciao.